Man, how y'all doing? Welcome back to Pnoid News. So, as we know, there has been a crazy conflict going on in Ukraine, right? And here on this channel, we do a few things really well, right? We do men's issues, we do geopolitics, we do economics. We do them and we do them properly, right? Because of the fact that like we do research, like for like almost every video I make, I usually try to do like an hour or two's worth of research before I make the video to make sure we're square. And this is no exception, right? And this here's from Peter Zeihan, right? He's gonna break this down for us, and we're gonna stop and I'm gonna chime in as we go along. So, without further ado, let's get to the video.
Talk about the Russians. Yes, this is on its side, so north this way. Just do that if you have to. A lot of people do. There's no shame. This V, this wedge, is populated Russia. It is the part of Russia where it's not so cold that your nose will freeze off in early October. Late October, you're screwed, but early October, you're fine. Now, this orange color here, that's roughly the population density of eastern Nebraska if you melon scoop out Lincoln and Omaha. So you do have neighbors, you will not see them every day. That's populated Russia. On the shoulders, it gets a little less encouraging. So same view, but this is a combined climate and economic map. So the green, that's the Russian wheat belt. That's where everybody lives. The blue, tundra and Tagai, nobody lives there. The yellow, desert, nobody lives there. You technically could survive in the beige, but it's not pleasant. When the Russians...
When you're looking at the beige, what you're thinking of is like Mongolia, right? The climate in Mongolia, basically, it gets to be about like 55, maybe 60 degrees in the daytime and drops down to about 28 Fahrenheit at night. It's livable, like you can survive, but it's not a good life. It's like living in Portland in like the fall. it's miserable, you know what I mean? And it's dry and it's flat and it's just wind ripping all the time. It's a constant state of wind and then like rain, but it's not like good rain. Like it's not like you can count on it for crops type of rain. It's just not really a great place to be. It's the steppes. It's not a really good place as in general. Let's keep rocking though.
Look at this map. They really hate what they see because they see a chunk of territory that cannot be defended. They look at it from the point of view of these red hashes. These are the physical boundaries that you can't drive a tank through or the Mongolians can't horde through. From the Russian point of view, the only way that they can get security is if they can put permanent massed formations in these corridors, the access points to the Russian heartland. When the Soviet Union existed, they controlled all 9 of those access points. It was the most secure the Russian ethnicity had ever been in its existence. When the Soviet Union collapsed and we were left with rump Russia, they went from 9 to 1.
Now you have to remember when you think of different people, right? Like people are not a monolith across the world. Different countries do certain things really well. Russia does land. They're really good at land battle. Like the United States, when we were staring down the Soviets back after World War II, we were looking at a country that had like 10,000 tanks, and we were going, there's no fucking way. We're not taking them on land. Right now, we can fuck them up when it comes to the sea. Like, there's nobody that can rock with us in the oceans. There's nobody that can rock with us in the air. But there's quite a few countries that'll give it to us on the land. Right? And as you've noticed, like, we are not a land-based military. Like, we're not really good at that as an in general thing because of the fact that we are an ocean away. So moving a lot of equipment overseas, we can do it, but it's not going to be like we're pumping them out of the factories right there. That's why, like, nobody's ever come and tried to conquer the U.S. Like, last time was like the War of 1812 when we still had muskets, right? Like, you can't, like, there's no way you're coming into the U.S. mainland and trying us out. we will just, we will produce so many tanks. We will literally push you back with bulldozers. We don't care. We'll kill dozers will just be a normal thing, right? You can't take, like, when it comes to land battles, Russia's amazing, but, and this is a big but, you know what I mean, like, that's all they can do. And the truth is that their military shrinking due to their demographics. We're going to get into that in a second. Let's keep rocking.
In 2007, when the Russians invaded Georgia, they went from 1 to 2. In 2014, when they took Crimea, they went from 2 to 3. Last year, with the second Nagorno-Karabakh war, with the new troops that are there, they went from 3 to 4. They're hoping that the situation in Kazakhstan will stabilize to their benefit, which would take them from 4 to 5. And if they can take Ukraine in its entirety, they would go from 5 to 7. There's a method to the madness. Also means that the Russians can't stop. As Catherine the Great said, the only way that Russia can protect her borders is to expand them. They're not making that up. Does that mean they're going to do it this time around? I have no idea. This is hardly the first time since 2014 that the Russians have chosen to put 100,000 troops on Ukraine's borders to dick with them. Could be, but there's nothing to guarantee it. The reason that they haven't moved is because time is really not on their side. Oh yeah, do we have anyone from Texas? Yeah. It's not as big as you think. Time is not on their side. This is the Russian demography, and we're assuming here that the Russians are not lying about the numbers, and they lie about all their numbers. So, this bulge down here probably is not as big as it looks, because back in 2014, they just found 8 million children that they didn't have in the previous year's census. So, but here's the part that really matters. This is the generation that was born in the 1990s and early 2000s. The Cold War collapse. That's draftable age. Yes, the Russians can probably take the country with 100.
You would be amazed how many people have absolutely no idea, like, about what demographics are. I have these conversations all the time. People go, what? What are you talking about, Tom? What do you mean? Like, you're lying. And you start providing data, and they're like, when did this happen? Right? Because, like, schools are so terrible that, like, they never told anybody that, like, this was going on. Legit. Right? And now it's just, like, out in the open, and everybody's like, what? What do you mean? Like, what? We don't have enough people? What's going on? Like, it's so great. It's amazing.
30,000 troops take Ukraine. But they can't hold it. You guys know that from the experience in Iraq and Afghanistan. Occupying's not easy when the population doesn't want you there. It's a country of 45 million people. That's Iraq plus Afghanistan. And unlike Iraq and Afghanistan, where the population concentrations were pretty tight, Ukraine is farmland. Not possible with 130,000 troops. You're talking 2 million troops. The Russians only have 2 million troops that can play that role. And they are irreplaceable, and once they are deployed, that is it. Russia is done. It is Russia's last war. It's an open question in the United States whether it's better to just let them die over the long term, which they will, or lock them down in a war that is endless, which it would. From the American point of view, these are both equally viable options. The Ukrainians, of course, have an opinion. Bringing this back to the China discussion, Russia and Belarus are the world's second and fourth largest supplier of of potash. Nitrogen fertilizer is disappearing because of what's going on in energy markets. Phosphate fertilizer is disappearing because of what's going on in China. And if this war happens, potash fertilizer globally has a shortage as well.
Okay, Like, yo, look, see, this is where, like, having a conversation about fertilizer is highly important, right? You know what I mean? Because, like, I actually legitimately didn't really know this, right? This here is from an article on fertilizer from yahoo.com, right? From Yahoo News, right? No secret, farmers are faced with fertilizer crisis. Prices for phosphorus based and potassium based potash fertilizers have more than doubled in Kansas, while nitrogen based fertilizers have more than quadrupled, right? Here's a chart to show you exactly what's going on. I had no idea about this, right? So, like, this is the first time for all of us learning exactly what the situation is with fertilizer. Things are getting very bad in the third world, right? With so few resources, meeting expectations of an ever increasing population, extremely difficult. A drop in agricultural production has been caused by a loss of soil fertility, pests, and a shortage of nutrients. Fertilizers have become even more important than agriculture because of this. The main raw materials used to make nitrogen fertilizers and nitrogen and hydrogen. Nitrogen is the most common component in fertilizers, and plants require huge amounts of it. It's an important part of the photosynthesis process, which allows plants to make food from sunlight. It's required for nearly every component of the plant physiology. Plants with nitrogen deficit can experience slow growth and develop yellow leaves. Excess nitrogen in fertilizers, on the other hand, might cause plants to grow vegetatively at the expense of flowering and fruiting. Agriculture, and this is in but Balakia, agriculture minister demands end to fertilizer smuggling. So, like, this is something, that is legitimately, like, really going on. And I had no idea about that, but, it's most definitely something that we should be on the lookout about, because, like, fertilizer is going through the fucking roof. So that means food prices are going to go through the roof. And here's the great thing. The Fed has decided to start tightening. So that means cheap capital doesn't exist anymore. And so the third world is, well, he's going to tell you. Let's keep rocking.
Yes, rifles are an industrial technology, but so is fertilizer. And if you remove all three types of fertilizer at the same time, this world is over. Now, the U.S. will be fine. We either produce it ourselves or get stuff we need from Canada. But the rest of the world, the technical term is fucked.
Yo, that was great. Yo, I really, that was beautiful. You said the technical term is fucked. Yo, like, man, listen, like, this is why I like Zeihan. He's just really honest about things, right? And let's be real here. Again, our leaders are not on top of shit. Nobody has any idea what the fuck's going on because, like, we're not even having these conversations. We're too worried about culture war issues and nonsense. Then, like, our news is over here. The news isn't even really covering any actual shit. Like, yo, this is amazing. Legit. Nobody's even talking about this. Like, yo, like, there's going to be millions of people starving this year. It just is what it is. Let's keep going.
So let's talk about where it hurts most. Here's Africa in 1950. This is a crop concentration map. The pink and the blue are areas where roughly 1/3 or less of the land is under cultivation. And in a pre-industrial system, this is what you would expect. We don't have this experience in the American Midwest. Our land is too good. But in every other part of the world, most of the lands are subpar. And it takes value-added inputs in order to make them productive. Fertilizer, pesticides, herbicides, equipment, finance, takes it all. All of those are industrial technologies. And with 50 years of access to those technologies, this is what Africa became. Over 5 decades, their output increased by a factor of 5. It's one of the great successes of the globalized order. Now take away some of those inputs. Subpar lands, once you apply the technology, have explosive increases, which means if you take away the inputs, they have explosive decreases. Now this next map combines, this is where the world's wheat comes from. The beige are the net exporters, the red are the net importers. The reason I'm putting this up is because of the Russians. The last time the Russians mucked with export markets for wheat and imports, it was 2010. They had a very dry season in Siberia, and a lot of their wheat fields burned. On top of the previous year, where it had been a wet year, and they had locusts. I mean, Russia's very good at plagues. Anyway, in 2010, they had export restrictions that had the net effect, by removing a certain percentage of global production from the market, of doubling wheat prices globally. It tripled in the countries where they were usually the primary supplier, particularly the Middle East. We know the outcome of that is the Arab Spring. And that's nothing compared to the scale of what we're seeing already this year. In fact, even if things with China and Russia and energy went away today, it's probably too late to get the fertilizer created, processed, and distributed before planting season in the Northern Hemisphere. This is a list of the wars in Europe that erupted, that impacted food production and distribution. The Eastern Hemisphere agricultural zones are, as a rule, subpar. And when you mess up the input stream, things get nasty fast. Here's a list for the same time frame for North America. The Midwest is not normal. It rains. It's on a water network for distribution.
That is a really good point, right? Like America as an in general thing, North America as a whole, hasn't really had a real conflict on it in 130 years, like 140 since the Mexican American Wars. I mean, like, you had Native American conflicts back in, like, like the middle to end part of, like, the 19th century. But, like, let's be honest here. Like, that shit was pretty much all done with before the Civil War came through, right? Like, Americans had really, like, expanded and grown, and, like, it just, when it came to food production, like, there has not been, like, real starvation in America since, the Dust Bowl, really, when it comes down to it. And motherfuckers like, Americans are going hungry every night. Like, quit whining, get shit together. Like, if you ain't able to make your motherfucking food bills, if you can't get food, damn well you can go to the county office and beg, and like, yeah, we got you. Here's $300. You know what I'm saying? Like, in emergency, they'll give it to you. Like, I don't give a fuck where you live. Like, it is what it is. Let's keep rocking though.
Nobody else can do that. So yeah, we're looking at a turning of history, but it's turning back. This is my favorite map of all times. This takes everything that I do in manufacturing and military strategy and energy and agronomics and puts it in one graphic. The countries in the blue in a deglobalized world are the ones that rule the future. They've got everything that they need locally. They're going to do very, very well. They will try to screw it up. They will fail. The green, looking pretty good, more or less where they are now. Yellow and brown is where things fall apart. Now, the yellows have something going for them. Maybe they're self-sufficient in food or energy, or they have a particularly unified population that doesn't mind a few hardships here and there. They'll suffer through. The browns can't. The browns are utterly dependent upon the shape of the world as it is today, as it is maintained by the Americans. And they lack the capacity to impose a replacement system even in their own neighborhoods. And then the reds are the failed states, so if you don't know their names, don't bother learning them. I am not worried about managing or repulsing a Chinese or a Russian war of expansion. If the Chinese or the Russians move, it's their end. And part of me is kind of looking forward to that. I am worried about managing wars of collapse and wars of after effects as these major powers that have thrived in recent decades because of the American strategic overwatch, because they collapse under their own weight and leave gaping holes in the map. That's my concern.
Well, folks, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's not wrong. in the end of the day. It's most definitely going to be interesting over the next, like 15, 20 years. It's going to be very, very, very interesting. And the next year or two is going to be extremely interesting as a whole. So we'll see where everything shakes out. But like, I want y'all to understand that like things are going to get very expensive very quickly. And I don't know, maybe with the Fed tightening and US dollar gaining value through that system, if we can maintain our pay and keep the workforce low, we can end up like keeping the raises that we've gotten over the past couple of years, over the past year or so. With, all these boomers retiring and, the kids coming through and, like demanding more money for these garbage jobs. Maybe your dollar will be able to go far enough that you'll be able to buy groceries, and afford to live as an in general thing. I don't know. It's a possibility, right? But I'm just not sure how it's going to shake out. Springtime's coming up, fellas. Seeds, ground, dirt, plant out back where you live. Be ready. You know what I mean? I'm an Appalachian, so I'm always on that level. We're always there. But you should probably really look into exactly what's going on, in your local situation and see what you can do to feed yourself. So I'm Pnoid News. You know that there, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the links in the description. You want to, support channel. Become a member of the Patreon. You know what I'm saying? Become a member of the Discord. Come in, check us out. It is what it is. Later.